You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, a big day as far as immigration is concerned, not just federally, but provincially today as well. We finally got some numbers announced. I want you to hear Christine Frechette, our immigration minister, basically commenting here on what she wants from the feds. Here you go.
We are saying to the Canadian government that Quebec is receiving much too many asylum seekers when compared to the number of people living in Quebec. So we ask the federal government to review its approach for visitors' visas, because too many people are using these visas to enter Canada, and especially Quebec, in order to become an asylum seeker. And we are asking the federal government also to spread the asylum seekers among all provinces.
Okay, she also goes on to cite that, and to try to make her case, Jim, she said, we are 22% of the population, but we're taking in 54% of asylum seekers. So what do you make of all this? At least we got a number.
Well, at least she's 100% right. But the other thing, importance, and proves a theory that I have been nurturing now, is you heard the numbers out of Ottawa this afternoon?
From Mark Miller, we did not, no.
Oh, well, guess what? They're not going to change their levels. They're going to keep the 500,000 immigration level per year, federal, which basically means Madame Frechette and every other cabinet minister in the country has to put up with Justin Trudeau, who I theorize wakes up every morning, squints at himself in the bathroom mirror and just says, "Just watch me." The guy has got all kinds of evidence that these numbers are too high. His own people are telling him, we don't have the housing, we don't have the resources to handle this. But sure enough, they have decided that when you put out a tweet years ago that says, Canada's open to all with open arms, I guess you have to stick with it. But we're going to have some real problems down the road here. On the one hand, Madame Frechette's announcement was greeted with a certain amount of disdain, predictable disdain, by Quebec's business community today, because they're saying, listen, 50,000 is not enough. We are dying here. There's a labor shortage involved. But all that said, it seems that on the one hand in Quebec, we have a dogma uttered by François Legault that says, we'll take fewer people, but we'll take better care of them, which does not seem to be necessarily the case. And on the other, we've got this idea in Ottawa that the sky's the limit, come one, come all, and somewhere in there's a train crash coming, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
I don't know how you resolve this. So on the one hand, to your point about, the federal limits staying exactly where they were, and I'm guessing Quebec, although maybe, Jim, I'm wrong. I was going to say I'm guessing Quebec's not alone in this, going to the federal government and saying, first of all, something's wrong with this. Second of all, we need you to pay us for what we have to do to accommodate these people. But what about other Canadian provinces? If we're getting twice as much as we should be, I mean, it seems like Quebec has a case here.
Well, absolutely. And I find it remarkable that 24 hours after Mark Miller essentially announced that we have to revamp the federal immigration system, that the system essentially isn't working as well as it could be, then turns around and says, but we're going to keep the same level. We're going to keep the engine running at the same speed, even though it's clear that engine has to be stripped down and there has to be a real serious look taken at it. So I got to tell you, the people who are caught in the middle, and there's always somebody caught in the middle in these things, are the immigrants themselves, are people who will either turn around and say, I'm not going to go there because on the one hand, Canada open arms, but it takes forever to finally get into the place. And on the other, for Quebec, even though they're saying 50,000, they too are throwing all kinds of obstacles up, even for Francophone immigrants who turn around and say, I could probably do better having to deal with the white elephant of the federal immigration system than that of Quebec. It doesn't bode well for the future, given that everyone will admit that immigrants, it's not just a matter of, being shiny, happy people and saying, we're so diverse. The idea is we need skilled labor. We need bodies. And the numbers that we're seeing, especially if we're sort of semi-headed towards a recession, we don't need to have companies turning around and shuttering because they don't have enough people to work there. And indeed, here's François Legault with his come one, come all, I'll pay you to learn how to operate heavy machinery on a construction site.
But here's the thing. This is where none of this makes sense to me. Like, okay, bring them in, but why is there no sort of sense of urgency to provide housing, to make sure we have places to house the people, that we have doctors to take care of them, we have teachers to teach their kids? Like, to me, I feel like we're coming at it, both the feds and the provincial government, from completely the wrong approach. Yes, we need immigrants. We need them to come and work here, but we also need to be able to properly take care of them. And there seems to be no real plan or sense of urgency, Jim.
Well, what you have to do is imagine in this country, the federal system and our political system is 10 sets of hands with a left hand and a right hand that don't talk to each other, and then an overreaching pair of hands at the federal level that don't talk to anybody at all. And that pretty much sums up the situation.
Like, I don't know where the solution to this is. It's going to be interesting to see what reaction is, Jim, from across the country to the federal announcement today. As I said, We're not the only ones involved in this, so we'll have to hold on and wait on that. I will point out the other provincial announcement today with respect to temporary foreign workers. What'd you make of that, this idea that they're going to have to take a French test every 3 years?
That's typical. I mean, as I mentioned before, another reason, even for Francophones, to say, I don't need this rubbish. I mean, especially if, many Francophones are utterly fluent in English and can function, and they're not here to jump through hoops to do their job. They want to find some place to work. They want to build a career. And the idea that for some reason, some little pin-headed bureaucrat comes up to you on regular intervals and kicks the tires on your French, people, where else does anybody do that? I mean, it's so absurd. But once again, we'll shrug and say, well, it's Quebec. Yeah, but as we're seeing on an almost daily basis, the distinctiveness of Quebec and its so-called way of, our special way of doing things in our nation is starting to cost us a bundle, and I'm not really sure it can be maintained for that much longer.
Well, there's also the whole other aspect that, say people do actually come here, they forge a life for themselves, and then they want to stay. We make it near impossible for them. The bureaucracy is a total and complete nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I read a report 6 months ago in La Presse that basically said the word is out on Quebec, and I'm certain it's out on Canada to a certain extent, but the word is out on Quebec that basically, if you want to get through, if you want to move to Canada, don't waste your time with Quebec. It's the last place you want to be. And all of those emails that are being interchanged to that effect are written in French.
Look, I'm not sure. The one thing that I will say with respect to this foreign workers issue, Jim, is you don't learn the French. Or if your skill level or your skill set is not up to what it's supposed to be, they're sending you home, right?
Well, I'll bet you folding money that if you happen to be of Korean origin working for a battery-making company, those rules will not apply.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. It's one of those subjects. It's hard to wrap your head around this. And again, whatever Quebec announced today, to then have a minister, Jim, and you're 100% right to suggest that, it's an unwieldy system, and then come out and announce the exact same number you announced before. Yeah. I don't understand this. Where's the sense in any of this?
But I got to tell you guys, whether it's François Legault or whether it's Justin Trudeau, and I extend this air-quoted blessing to both of them, okay? When you start using immigration as a piece of political theater, as a prop for your political agenda, bad things are going to happen, and we're seeing them happening now.
Well, they are happening now, that's for sure. Look, real quick before we get out of here.
You want to talk about the poll numbers today? François Legault not exactly smiling at these results.
I thought the biggest physical activity today would be François Legault's head exploding with those poll numbers, but I was wrong.
Oh?
I was wrong because the biggest physical activity was on the part of Pierre-Carl Pelledeau twisting his entire Quebecor empire into interpreting this latest poll as being wind in the sails of sovereignty, even though the poll shows it's only, support for sovereignty is at 35%. The PQ is on its way. That's absolute nonsense. And be careful here, because they're also spinning it as saying, well, this is the results of the Jean Talon by-election. BS, come on. That poll was taken after the McGill fiasco, after the public sector union strike votes, after people now are realizing inflation's not going away. And no, I'm not going to be able to find affordable housing anywhere sometime soon. So let Monsieur Pelledeau do what he wants. The fact of the matter is, this is a very unvarnished message to François Legault, telling him to smarten up. Will he climb down from anything? If you'd asked me yesterday, I'd say, no, he's going to double down. Having heard his comments just on the newscast concerning bishops, he may be ready, perhaps, to make some concessions because these numbers are real.
Yeah, but he did at the same time suggest it would, I think he made that clear, Jim, it will only possibly be bishops. The other two, not a chance. Not McGill and not Concordia. At least that's the message I took from it.
Last week, it was not a chance for any.
Okay, fair enough.
Good point.
James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adama.